Hello and good day. My name is Lisa Brown and my pronouns are she and her. Today, my presentation is on inclusive leadership. I'll begin by reading our land acknowledgement. York University recognizes that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Toronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabeg Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lake region. The session will help participants reinforce common understanding of key principles related to inclusive leadership and advocacy. It will help participants build capacity to support their peers and lead with an awareness of their own positionality. Lastly, it will help participants apply effective leadership stance strategies to experiences that help overcome challenges. So I ask the question, what does it mean to be an inclusive leader? Do you already have a definition? Do you have examples that demonstrate inclusive leadership? Let's explore this some more. Inclusive leadership means having the courage to take conscious steps to break down barriers for people at risk of being excluded from society. Inclusive leaders embody a leadership approach that appreciates diversity, invites and welcomes everyone's individual contribution, and encourages full engagement with the processes of decision making and shaping reality. The aim of inclusive leadership is to create change and innovate whilst balancing everybody's needs. It's important with inclusive leadership approaches to practice self-awareness, to live with a shared vision, and build healthy relationships with others, as well as work towards positive change. You may already be familiar with the peer leadership and inclusion model, so let's just take a moment to quickly review. This is a social change model of student leadership development goals. And these goals are self-knowledge and leadership competence. Self-knowledge focuses on the understanding of one's talents, values, interests, especially as they relate to the capacity to provide effective leadership. And leadership competence would be that capacity to mobilize oneself and others to serve and work collaboratively. Teaching leadership comes from three different perspectives. One is the individual perspective, where students identify and develop personal qualities to support group functioning and positive social change. Examples will include self-awareness, congruence, the alignment between your own actions and your beliefs and your values, as well as competence. For group perspectives, students identify and develop collaborative leadership processes that facilitate the development of the desired individual qualities. As mentioned above, self-awareness is an example. But this also is to affect positive social change. This includes collaboration, common purpose, and conflict with civility. The ability to respectfully agree to disagree, for example, is a skill. For community perspectives, students identify and pursue service activities most effective in energizing the group and in developing desired personal qualities in the individual. This also includes engagement with community and civic responsibilities, working towards positive social change. You are all either growing in your own understanding of leadership and advocacy terms, or you've solidified your own understanding of these terms and principles. So it's important to bring our understanding together at the start of this session. So now I'll ask to take a moment to think about how each term connects to or is in relationship with the idea of inclusive leadership and diversity. We define inclusion as the ongoing exercise of ensuring the university values and proactively cultivates difference so that each individual can achieve their full potential and bring their whole selves in service of the academic plan. Equality speaks to uniformity. It's a state of being equal, and it's based on the idea that everyone in society has the same status, rights, opportunities, and therefore the same treatment should result in equal outcomes. So, an organization, for example, might be aiming towards racial or gender equality. Equity is the quality of being fair and impartial. It often is synonymous or used synonymously with equality. However, equity contemplates fairness within the intersections of identity and is the recognition that people have diverse identities, resulting in different experiences of marginalization and discrimination. So, for example, it's exploring the impact of difference, the analysis and approach that you might consider what happens when a woman is paid less than a man. She might be unable to contribute to her household in the same way as her male counterpart. Discrimination is the denial of equal treatment or opportunity to individuals or groups, and it applies in areas of education, housing and accommodation, contracts, employment, and access to services, goods, and facilities. Harassment is a pattern of comments or behaviors known or ought reasonably to be known to be unwelcome. And this can also occur in workplaces. It can relate to sexual harassment, racial harassment, and many other forms. It is also important to identify that it is a form of discrimination as well. Microaggressions are the everyday verbal, sometimes nonverbal, and environmental slights or snubs or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely on their marginalized group membership. Privilege relates to a set of unearned benefits given to people in specific social groups and often invisible to the people receiving these benefits. Power is the confluence of factors that allows a person to have control over their circumstances and potentially others. Intersectionality is a theoretical framework. It's this wide analysis of disadvantage and oppression, and the experiences then explored by marginalized groups based on intersections of their identity. Are you also familiar with the terms social location and positionality? Let's spend some time thinking about those two terms as well. So this slide is just to prompt a greater self-awareness of how identity impacts our perception of helping work in inclusive leadership development. Do you know what social location means? Social location often refers to positionality. Your social location and positionality is a stance in relation to others. It speaks to a social and political context that creates your identity in terms of race, class, gender, sexuality, ability status, and many other aspects of your identity. Everyone has a unique social location and position that influences and potentially biases your understanding and outlook of the world. So I ask you to think about why intersectionality and social location, as well as positionality, might be important concepts to think and apply to this idea of inclusive leadership. According to business leaders around the world, what do you think is the top leadership competency recognized by these individuals? Any guesses? In a Harvard Business Review article, Sunny Giles asked the question, what makes an effective leader? And what are a list of competencies leaders should have? His leadership development research survey was completed by 195 leaders in 15 countries over 30 global organizations. 74 competencies were listed, and participants were asked to choose 15. The top leadership competency is strong ethics and safety, referring to high ethical and moral standards. Let's explore this some more. High ethical and moral standards basically indicate that fairness and a commitment to uphold ethics and fairness is top priority and should be demonstrated by all types of leaders. Sunny Giles remarks, taken together, these attributes are all about creating a safe and trusting environment. A leader with high ethical standards conveys a commitment to fairness, instilling confidence that both they and, in this case, employees will honor the rules of the game. Similarly, when leaders clearly communicate their expectations, they avoid blindsiding people and ensuring that everyone is on the same page. In a safe environment, employees, again in this case, but thinking about student colleagues, can relax, invoking the brain's higher capacity for social engagement, innovation, creativity, and ambition. What is the relationship, do you think, between some of the key terms that we referred to and outlined before and this leadership competency? For one, leaders who understand how subtle yet harmful microaggressions can be to diverse team members will help set the tone for a workplace or social culture that rejects this egregious form of discrimination. Can you describe a leader that has inspired you by demonstrating these qualities? Let's bring this important competency back home to your commitments and leadership work at York University. How comfortable are you engaging in challenging conversations with your peers about potentially discriminatory behavior and maybe comments? How well do you know and uphold human rights principles, such as ensuring dignity for all? Are you empathetic and open to diverse points of view, validating your peers' lived experiences and maybe emotional responses to different situations? It's important that you consider how upholding fairness fits into your role as leaders at York University. So I asked the question, how does your position and social location impact you as inclusive leaders? Take a moment to think about that. Let me introduce you to a leadership framework that dovetails well with the concepts we've reviewed today and with the peer leadership and inclusion model your work is based on. This leadership framework is coined by thought leaders Karen and Henry Kemsey House. It's called CoActive Leadership. Also, think about, again, the social change model for student leadership. Many of the aspects of this model overlap, and the concepts and dimensions form much of the connections to the inclusion models. So looking at the diagram here, you'll see leadership from different points of view. Leading from within means living life from inside out with integrity and purpose. We accept ourselves fully, which actually represents the co aspect of coactive, and lives our lives with integrity in accordance to our own personal values as authors of our lives. And our lives speaks to the active aspect. You are not looking to lead people. You're living your life with great integrity, knowing yourself, loving yourself, and people start to pay attention to that and want to engage with you and follow because they are also inspired. Leading from the front. This dimension is not just about being the boss or being in charge. It requires a connection with people. Again, connection. Connection and direction, pointing the way. This is standing for a vision, really saying, here's where we need to go. Again, being active. You must, in relationship with the people who you want to move forward with your vision. Leaders in front have courageous conversations that connect people to the leaders and to the vision. Leadership from behind. This dimension is about serving. Servant leadership is at its best. Service from the heart. It's not about sacrificing or fixing. Serving is the best expression. What's needed and how can I serve that? Coaching is a core competency of leadership, evoking brilliance, power, and creativity of others. Leaders from beside. The heart of this dimension is the in co-leadership. Together, the sum of what we can create is greater than what either one of us can generate on our own. Leaders from beside allows the emergence of more powerful and creative solutions, or a synergy. We have the space to disagree, sometimes very passionately, about what needs to happen until we find a place of alignment. Leaders in the field. This is an energetic field that surrounds all of life and is offering us information all the time. They say that science knows about 10% of what is actually knowable, and we're receiving a lot of information that we actually don't see. As leaders in the field, we go beyond what is known or predictable and activate our instinct, imagination, and intuition. So I have a question. What does your leadership stance look like from each dimension? As you take a moment to reflect, I want you to also think about what you may encounter as an inclusive leader. How will this framework help you lead well? Take a moment to unpack who you are. Think about your positionality. I want you to also pick at least 2 leadership dimensions and describe an example from your own lived experience. I will also leave you with a case scenario that you can consider as well. What might happen if a derogatory comment about women is made on social media or among your teammates or other students? How might you address this concern? Thinking about your role as a leader and thinking about the different ways that leadership you can potentially look to. Question. Encourage yourself to identify all aspects, but at least think about 2. I'll leave you with some final thoughts as well. Creating inclusive spaces and being an inclusive leader is an ongoing exercise. We can all contribute to fostering inclusion for all. We can do this by inviting opportunities to establish common understandings of leadership and advocacy, as well as understanding our own leadership stance and position for advocacy and support. Thank you very much for being a part of this session today, and we hope that you've gained. If you have any questions, feel free to be in touch with us. At the Center for Human Rights, Equity, and Inclusion, we focus on building inclusion and inclusive spaces, ultimately and ideally to promote a sense of belonging. We offer a number of services and supports available to everyone throughout the York University community. We sit at a number of committee tables and others and providing consultation throughout the university because we want to bring a human rights lens to much of the conversations within these committees. We look forward to all the leadership work that you're going to be doing this year. Enjoy. Thank you.